So I'm Lynne Elliot, I'm the Chief Exec of White Ribbon UK, and I'm here to talk to conference today about the government's aspiration to halve violence against women and girls within the next decade. And obviously I want to talk to everybody here about the role of the fire and rescue services in that. I guess the first thing I would say is it's a bit of a half-hearted aspiration for me and my organisation. We don't want to halve it, we want to end it completely. This whole conference is about inclusion and making sure that everyone is equal and respected. So we want that across the board. So our aspirations are much higher than the government's, and I want everyone to go away today with a really clear and firm idea of what they can do to make that happen. So violence against women and girls is escalating in a quite frightening way, really. So the National Police Chiefs Council issued a report this time last year, which showed some really concerning figures, like an increase of 37% in the last 5 years. And also a really concerning fact that young perpetrators are getting younger. So young men and boys are committing more crimes now than they did 5 years ago. So obviously that means we're all driven to tackle it. We need to do something about it. We need to get on with stopping it before it starts. As I speak this morning, the government have announced a programme of money to fund some work to rehabilitate offenders of domestic abuse, which is brilliant. But we want to stop that from happening in the first place. So we don't want to work with offenders. We want to have no offenders. And I know that everybody in the fire and rescue service feels the same way, that we want everyone to be safe, everyone to be respected, everyone working together. And one of the things that I always say is fire and rescue services are a really brilliant example of that. I often quote as a role model fire and rescue services where everybody works together as a team. We have lots of responsibilities and procedures that we rely on each other for. And there are some really good teams of men and women working together on the front line in the fire and rescue services, showing how effective it is if women bring their personalities, their whole selves, their characteristics alongside men, working with them, and we join together. So brilliant example in the fire and rescue services of what can be done if we all pull together as a team. So today, I really want everyone to take that team message home, that we can't solve this problem without men working alongside women. It is solvable if we have that allyship, and allyship is all about joining together and doing teamwork. So men need to support women, they need to stand up for them. There are lots of things that men can do. And some of my presentation today will be about unpicking how that violence happens and how it starts with low-level behaviours that are disrespectful to women, misogynistic, that as a society we tend to accept. And I'm going to be asking everyone in conference today to stop accepting those behaviours, to think about what they're doing and saying, to challenge other people when they're doing and saying things which are not respectful, so that we can move on. So if we work on those low-level behaviours, the idea is that we stop the higher-level ones from happening in the first place. So I'm going to be talking about that progression and why it's important. We're also going to talk about the Worker Protection Act, which was passed in 2023, came into force October 2024. It gives employers, so everyone in the fire and rescue service, a responsibility as an employer and as an employee and a colleague to stop harassment of any kind. So that's part of the Equality Act, and it's very salient to this conference really, because it's about everyone being respected and being safe and being part of a team in the workplace. It particularly picks out sexual harassment because that is such a problem, because it is a growing problem, because it's hard to report, it's difficult for women to understand or accept that it's going to be acted on, because in the past it hasn't been. The Worker Protection Act is brilliant because it really clearly states what kind of behaviour is not acceptable and what kind of behaviour is acceptable. And it actually lists and names some behaviours that it really focuses on. One of those being banter, one of them being jokes. Some of it is about facial expressions, about staring. A lot of the things that in the past have happened to women and men have said, oh, well, I didn't mean it, it was just a joke. That's not there anymore. That's all taken away. We've removed a lot of the grey areas, and it's very black and white about the standards we expect at work. So that is really helpful for everyone in making sure that we're working together as a team. I am going to talk about the benefits to men of gender equality, because there are huge benefits for men of having women more equal. There's some obvious ones for women and obvious benefits for ending violence against women and girls. Lots of men, boys, grow up in a household where violence and domestic abuse happens. That is really awful way to grow up, and it means they often have lower educational attainment. They might find it difficult to form relationships when they're grown men, and it often means it's really hard for them to be parents because they don't have that positive role model. But we also know from lots of research in the Nordic countries, in Scandinavia, where things are more equal, that it's better for men's health. It's better for men's physical health and mental health if women are more equal. Men have better and long-lasting relationships with women if women are more equal. And the more involved men are in parenting their children, the more present they are, the better paternity leave deals they get, the better educational outcomes those children have, and the better relationship outcomes. So better for everybody. There's lots of research and evidence to show that we need equality. And if we have equality, that will lead to us being able to stop violence against women and girls. So it's a positive message, although it starts off quite gloomy in terms of the recent figures. There is a solution. There is something every single person can do to help it. I'm hoping people will take away from my presentation an understanding of how violence happens, a desire to not accept it anymore, because we do accept it as a society and we have to stop doing that, and a willingness to think about their own behaviours and what they're doing and saying, and to stand up and challenge other people when they're doing something which isn't okay. It's massively important because every individual person makes up the whole team that stops this from happening. But fire and rescue services in particular are role models in their communities, in their families and their communities. So everything that people are doing is going to be looked at and scrutinised and thought about and considered. So it's really important that individual people take action now, and that people, we know from research, particularly in Wales, we know that young men and boys look up to people that they consider to have skills and experience, and that does include people like barbers and tattooists, but it massively includes fire and rescue services. So really important that we get everybody on board.